because the Archbishop of Cantebury has been snubbed by Suella Braverman after reportedly trying to initiate talks on immigration. Justin Welby has previously condemned the Home Secretary's rhetoric and argued the plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda is morally unacceptable and against the judgment of God. Well, meetings between archbishops and Home Secretaries are not unusual, as Tom Jones might say, but is the Church becoming too political? Well, joining me now is the former Brexit Party MEP, Belinda De Lucy, and former Labour MEP, Stephen Pound. I'm going to start first with you, Belinda. Is there any wonder that Suella Braverman, who's under fire as it is, doesn't want to meet the Archbishop of Wokery, as some people call him, who said that Rwanda specifically, which, don't forget, is coming to judgment on October the 9th very soon, is against the judgment of God? Why should she listen to him?
I think she already knows what he thinks anyway, so I don't see what she's going to get from being lectured by him again. And call me old-fashioned, Martin, but I think our migration policy should be determined and shaped by the people of this country and by our elected representatives, not by our kings, not by our archbishops, but by the people and our elected representatives. What does he not understand about that? Secondly, his constant moral judgment on anyone who wants to control the borders or change the treaties. I think it is immoral to prioritise and reward those who least need saving, those who are already in safe countries, rich, relatively rich, agile, fit young men, over and above those who are at risk of death, who are in the camps. This group of people is being rewarded by our treaties at the moment, and that's immoral to prioritise them. I think it's also unchristian to strip developing countries of their workforce, and with this big carrot that the West is dangling over to take all their fit and young people away from their country. How on earth are they ever going to develop if this shift of people keeps happening? So that the whole moral argument, I think he's got wrong. And I go to church a lot. I'm a big C of E gal, and I feel very protective over the church, and I feel very let down by our leaders who keep interfering in politics and keep lecturing and judging ordinary Brits who say, do you know what? We quite like our country having borders. We like our culture and our traditions and our history and our values, and we just like a fair system that prioritises those most in need and respects the British taxpayer.
Stephen Pound.
Yeah. Well, is anything left for me here? I don't often see myself in Suella Braverman's shoes, and I don't often have a huge amount of sympathy for her. But the thought of being lectured by another, entitled old Etonian toff, like we used to call it Oil Wellesby, I think we used to call him. Yeah. I have to say it's slightly worrying. But I think what's confusing about this in many ways is obviously there's no read across here because she's not an Anglican. She belongs to a Buddhist sect called the Ratatna group, which is formerly Ratatna Buddhism, formerly the Friends of Western Ratatna Buddhism. I think they had a split, and you don't want to be in the room when the Buddhists kick off. And in fact, their motto is actually finding strength in refuge, but I think that may mean something different. Do you think?
Spiritual refuge, I think.
Oh, I see. Not Dover Beach, but look. The reality is, it's very, very easy to say things like stop the boats, put a limit on it. It's very, very hard to actually do it. Yeah. And I think if you've got an absolutist position like Archbishop Welby, who will simply say absolutely everybody should come because everybody, if they identify as suffering, they should. That's bonkers. And I think that actually fuels and feeds the sort of prejudice which I hope none of us at this desk would actually want to see.
OK, obviously, Welby isn't here to defend himself, and he would counter, no doubt, that if he believes it's against the judgment of God, what Suella Braverman is doing, sending what he would call defenceless, poor refugees to Rwanda, then he would see it as his duty, his mission, his calling to intervene. What do you say to that?
I say very respectfully that he needs to spend a bit more time down on the ground. He needs to spend a bit more time in Lampedusa, where the top 3 countries that are represented by these migrants are not at war. Tunisia, Guinea, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast, none of them are at war. That's the majority are represented by those countries. He needs to understand that Suella was completely right, that there is a huge difference between those fleeing death and those fleeing discrimination or degrading treatment. And until he recognises that, he's actually not being realistic. And it's putting our country, the people and genuine asylum seekers at risk.
Stephen, aside from this specific incident, is part of this, do you believe, the fact that the Church of England, in fact, religion in general, Christianity is kind of falling off the radar a bit in terms of turnout at churches anyhow? Is Welby and the church in general looking for a new purpose, something to try and own, something to be holy on?
Well, I have to say, I find this cringe-making. It's the idea of sort of Rick the Vic playing the guitar on Sunday morning masses. Look, I mean, I have to say that the eternal verities of faith are still there. They're not changing. They're not going away. And I think that we ebb and we flow. You remember on Dover Beach that marvellous poem about the slow, melancholy withdrawing tide of religion, but it comes back in again. Yes. So look, I think if you're saying that, you remember they used to say about the British that they'd lost the empire and they hadn't yet found a role. I think the Church of England is confused. I'm not an Anglican, and I've always thought that the relationship between Anglicans and Catholics is they envy us our certainty. And I think the reality is we know what we stand for, and we know that Christ does belong in the community, in the marketplace, and we need to actually make that point. But to actually destroy your own argument, which is in the way which I think that Archbishop Welby's done, in a way that, oddly enough, Rowan Williams never did. And certainly, when Richard Charteris was the Bishop of London, he made a very, very different case.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Belinda? This idea, it seems to be that woke issues, LGBTQ issues, climate change, refugees, it seems to be a new calling.
It's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame in a way, because I think now more than ever we need that spiritual nutrition. Mental health is becoming a big thing at the moment, especially with our young people. Actually, that meditation space and peace you find in church is what a lot of people, I think, could do with at the moment. And they're putting people going off church by making it political. They've got involved in climate change. He got involved with Brexit, saying no deal was immoral. The Archbishop of York said our father was problematic because of the use of the word father, the beautiful male, high-value word father. I call him God my father, and I will keep calling him that. But getting involved in gender ideology, getting involved in race politics, because, of course, Welby is all into decolonising the church now, is against unifying people. Our Christianity should rise above the divisions of identity politics, not encourage it. So I do think it's lost its way a bit, but this country, its foundations are Christian, our values, our traditions are, and they need to defend them and stop prioritising everyone else, because, of course, in the Bible...
But is it true that there's never, ever been a time in this nation's history I can think of when we've actually needed moral leadership more? There's never been a time when we look around us, we've been given all the gifts that God could bestow us, and we're making a holics of the whole thing. There's never been a time when we actually need that leadership, and there's never been a time when we've had this sort of milk-toast, limp, wokery leadership instead.
Well said, Stephen.
Do you think maybe the Archbishop is trying to be that candle in the storm? He's trying to be the voice of God. He's trying his best. He would argue, to show moral leadership if he believes there is none from people like Suella Braverman.
Well, I'm sorry, he's not doing it very well. I mean, I take your point, it's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness, but, I mean, you can actually do both. And, and I think I'd rather actually build a power station than light a candle. I'd like to actually get something done. And there's so much that... the Church of England is one of the biggest landlords in this country. It's immensely wealthy. It can do a huge amount of things. And instead of just saying, oh, dear, Suella Braverman won't talk to me, I mean, and going off in a huff, with your surplice flapping in the wind, I mean, I'm sorry, that's not very impressive.
And I wonder, actually, if part of the issue could be he could open up some church properties to refugees.
Well, or his lovely Lambeth Palace. I mean, it is often those in ivory towers who want open borders and high immigration because it never impacts them. But I don't think we'll see that. Look, I think he's obviously a good man, but he has lost touch with the people. I think he should focus on filling the churches, helping people spiritually, and also, he could be calling for the protection of Christians persecuted around the world. At the moment, Nigeria has Christians being killed at a rate higher than anywhere else in the world. He never talks about that. He never talks about the souls of the country coming together. It's always jumping on the next woke thing. And as the old saying goes, if you marry the spirit of the age, you'll be widowed by the next. And they just need to stick to the traditional values.
But Nigeria's they have this Boko Haram, which actually means books are forbidden. The Bible is forbidden. I mean, that is appalling. And yet, what are we doing about that? What are we doing about Pakistan? What are we doing about what's happening in northeastern India? We just don't see...
And the church is
It just seems to be that the Archbishop of Cantebury is twisting himself round and round into a sort of tighter and tighter a spiral of agony instead of actually doing something.
OK, Belinda and Stephen, that's the debate for another time. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
I was a bit worried about us agreeing there for a minute.
Yeah, I know. I liked it.
Thank heavens this isn't live.
This is where you stop talking, Stephen. Hello, Thank you.